of a group of MPs, the House of Commons Treasury Select Committee, about how during 2 years of hearings into the credit crunch, they were the ones who got to ask the questions every taxpayer in Britain wanted answered. More and more witnesses were summoned to these committee rooms to explain what had happened. And this is the story, well, just a few highlights really, of what those titans of industry and politics and economics told the one forum that could hold them to account in public.
Mr. Marino, come on, give us a break.
What caused this?
That savers did not trust any of you.
It's made up of 14 MPs representing the three main parties. It's supposed to monitor the government's handling of the economy on behalf of Parliament. And these are some of the main players. John McFall's been chairman since 2001. Before politics, he was a deputy headmaster. At Westminster, he became a whip and then a minister. He's a visiting professor at Strathclyde University's Business School. Michael Fallon's the committee's highest profile Conservative. A former minister, he's tipped to inherit the chair of the committee if the Tories win the next election. The Liberal Democrat John Thurso is an old Etonian and a former CEO of Champneys Health Spas. Uniquely, he sat in the House of Lords as a hereditary peer before he was elected to the Commons.
The public clearly wanted to know how these major British institutions had come to the point of collapse, and wanted to know why so much public money had to be put into them when they had these apparently very respectable, high-powered boards of directors and were boasting that they were world-class financial institutions. And I think people just couldn't understand how they'd got into so much trouble. So that was what was unique about the session. It was really the first chance to confront these people right at the top and say, how on earth did this sort of thing happen?
A lot of the press previous to the report hearings was stating that they were going to apologise. So the first question obviously was, is sorry the hardest part?
We are profoundly, and I think I would say unreservedly, sorry.
They weren't really sure what they were sorry for. They were sorry that things had gone badly wrong. But the fact that something like RBS, which is, we have had to pay for all, the taxpayers paid this incredible amount of money over to pick up the pieces that these four men had let slip through their fingers in the most incredible way. And they just didn't quite seem to get that. They didn't quite seem to get that every person in Britain was paying for their mistakes.
The apology was a general apology for the situation in which businesses in the country found themselves, rather than a personal apology. And I think that's where the story unwound for them.
It's not something that you just breeze into without thinking, without doing, your own revision, your own homework, you're getting your own ideas lined up first. You do need to do that.
Not only are you surrounded by this sort of inquisition, all these interrogators, you're flanked by journalists and sketch writers, and you know that quite a lot of them are just desperate for you to make a complete fool of yourself.
It starts even before you get here. You come down the corridor, it's full of press, there's masses of public, there's the witnesses nervously chewing their nails, and you come in and we have our private meeting. You're aware of all that's been written the day before. The chairman calls for the public and the witnesses to be let in. There's a scramble for seats. The place is absolutely packed. Cameras on, scribes in every corner with notebooks out.
The credit crunch is going to be with us for years, probably decades to come. It'll be in our pensions, our public services, our tax bills, our job prospects. And having heard from the governors of the Bank of England, the powerful ministers, the bankers, the industry regulators, how did the Treasury Committee itself perform? Well, they issued a whole series of very weighty reports full of detailed recommendations on the future of the banking industry. And more than that, they fulfilled a different function. A kind of rough justice was dispensed here. Some said it was the modern equivalent of the pillory, or maybe the stocks.
People were beginning to suffer in their daily lives. People were extremely worried, and people were getting very cross about some of the things they were learning, and they jolly well wanted to know more. And there we were, available on live television. And therefore, I think we played a very important part in connecting the public with the events.
The committee was getting to an interesting place where they had much more confidence. They had much more kind of feeling of their own mission than they've ever had before. And I think, you know, it really gave you an idea of that select committees could be much more powerful than they are. I mean, they need to have some confidence too.
Look, every now and then I'd be watching a session and I'd be saying, why don't you ask this question? Or, and you get sort of slightly frustrated that, perhaps, the killer blow wasn't landed or a particular follow-up was somehow missed. But I'd say they were the exception to the rule.
I had friends in the city who were watching it on various channels who would kind of hush the dealing room and turn the sound up when we came on.
So you're telling me here, though, in answer to a question, Governor, that non-execs, we can't hope for them to do their job.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all. So what I am saying is that the question you've asked is one that was asked in the past, and the fact that there is a crisis is in itself not evidence that the individuals in charge of those institutions necessarily failed.
But Governor, this is 2008. We've put £500 million into the banks. We've got 5,000 emails from people who are angry about these things. And you're telling us, look, things are going to go on as they are. The power of the executive over years has been increasing, and we have to rebalance that power. And I think we're finding that newfound power in the select committee rooms.